Imagine this, you're 60 years old and only 5 years away from your planned retirement. You've worked hard your entire life to pay off your debt, put your kids through university, and you've climbed the corporate ladder. Then, unexpectedly, your boss calls you in for a meeting. The company is struggling financially, and the executive committee has decided to retrench some of the senior staff members. Unfortunately, you have lost your job. Now, the first and most pressing question arises. Should you look for another job? And will you even find one at your age? As you process this life-altering news, other questions begin to surface. Can you retire earlier than planned? How much can you save and spend each month without running out of money? Will your savings last for the rest of your life? And how can you minimize taxes and stretch your funds further? Most importantly, what happens if something happens to you? Will your family be financially secure? In this video, we'll address these critical questions head on. Together, we'll explore strategies for tax-efficient ways to manage your retirement savings. We'll also discuss the dynamics of retirement income and help you uncover that light bulb moment that provides clarity and confidence in these uncertain times. Every decision we make now interacts with others, creating a unique roadmap for your future. Join me as I walk you through these scenarios, offering actionable insights and strategies to help you navigate the challenges and build a secure and enjoyable retirement. Hello everyone, my name is R12. I'm a certified financial planning professional and a director at Family Wealth Custodians. Before we start, I would like to ask you a favor. We have a dream of positively impacting more than 1 million South Africans through our educational videos and financial planning content. But we need your help to achieve this goal. You can help us by subscribing to the Family Wealth YouTube channel and hitting the notification button. And if you find the video informative, please share the YouTube link on your social media. Without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Please note that the information presented in this video is hypothetical and intended for educational purposes only. It doesn't constitute personal financial advice. Each individual's financial situation is unique, and it's important to consult with a certified financial planner or a relevant financial professional to receive tailored advice that meets your unique needs. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on a crucial transition in your financial journey. It's that turning point where you go from the accumulation phase focused on growing your wealth to the distribution phase where you begin drawing from your savings and investments that you've worked so hard for to accumulate over your lifetime. The question changes from how much can I save to how do I make what I've saved last? This shift can feel overwhelming. Suddenly a flood of questions emerges, such as what if the market takes a downturn? How much can I safely withdraw without jeopardizing my future? And what impact will my withdrawals have on my taxes? And how can I ensure my financial security over the next 10, 20, 30 years? These questions can leave a feeling of uncertainty and alone, navigating these uncharted waters without a clear path forward. The goal of this video is to help you connect the dots. We'll break down how these variables interact and how the choices you make today can shape your financial future. Let's start by setting the scene for our discussion today. We're looking at a hypothetical couple from Pretoria, both aged 60 years, who because of circumstances outside of their control are considering retirement. Their main question is, can we retire now? They've managed to save up a substantial amount of about 12 million rand. The next big question is, if we retire now, how much can we comfortably spend? It's not just about spending money, it's about maintaining and sustaining their current lifestyle, keeping pace with inflation, ensuring they have enough funds for future medical expenses and to avoid running out of money. At Family Wealth Custodians, we use the Dynamic Retirement Income Plan to guide retirees through the different phases of their retirement journey. This approach recognizes that spending patterns evolve over time, allowing retirees to enjoy their money while ensuring long-term financial security. Okay, so let's have a look at the Dynamic Retirement Income Plan. At Family Wealth, we use this plan. And the reason we do that is because we divide retirement into three specific phases. So the first phase is what we call the go-go or active years. This is normally the first 10 to 15 years after retirement. And here we often find that this is the period when retirees spend the most. The reason for that is that they spend a lot of money on recreational activities, traveling, and hobbies. The things that they've worked so hard for and dreamed about doing in their retirement is normally done in this period. The next phase is what we call the slow go or moderate years. This is the next 8 to 10 years in retirement, and here we find a slight decline in spending, especially in recreational activities and travel. But people and retirees are still enjoying the things they wanted to do. And then the final phase is what we call the no-go or quiet years. This is normally the period, let's say, middle 80s to late 80s until end of life. And here we often find this is the period where retirees don't spend that much on recreational activities, but the biggest portion of their funds would go towards medical expenses and healthcare costs. So for this period, it's important that there's a solid foundation and that there's enough funds available so they can get proper healthcare. So how do we determine how much funds is needed for this dynamic retirement income plan? Well, first of all, we start with a bottom-up approach. And the first budget item we look at is medical expenses and healthcare costs. The reason for that is that's the one thing most South Africans can't live without. So when budgeting for medical expenses, we look at the entire period because that's the one expense you can have throughout your whole retirement. And the other thing about medical expenses is that inflation rate is much higher than normal inflation. So normal inflation is sitting at about 4, 5 to 6%, where medical inflation is much closer to 10, 11 or 12%. So as you can see in this example, medical starts as a small portion of your total budget, but as time goes on, later in life, it forms the biggest part of most retirees' overall budget. So the second step in this process is budgeting for basic living expenses. So here we focus on the essential costs required to maintain a retiree's lifestyle, which includes stuff like housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, and insurance premiums. Inflation during this period is very important, and normal inflation is sitting at about 5, 6 to 7% annually. So we make sure that we keep up with inflation during that entire period. So when we add this on top of the medical expenses base costs, this will give us a great idea of the necessities or the sort of the foundation, the overall foundation of what a retiree is going to spend throughout their entire retirement. So the third step of this process is where we add discretionary spending or discretionary expenses. These are stuff like spending money on travel, leisure, and hobbies. And we can clearly see that over time, what we've experienced is with our clients is over time that the spending on these type of activities actually slightly start to decline. So it's important that if we look at this overall scenario, we can clearly see that in the beginning phase, the biggest portion of retirees' budget is allocated towards discretionary expenses. And then as time goes on, a bigger portion of that gets allocated towards medical expenses. And that's why it's so important to, as circumstances change, to stay on top of every client's unique circumstances. So why does this approach work? This approach is not a perfect science, but it provides a clear framework that can be adjusted as your circumstances change. Furthermore, it's tailored to your unique life stages. The dynamic spend income plan aligns with the natural rhythm of retirement, adapting as priorities and needs change. It provides for sustainable budgeting by focusing on essentials first and adjusting discretionary spending. Retirees can avoid the risk of running out of funds. Furthermore, it's inflation-proof. Planning and using realistic inflation numbers, retirees can maintain their purchasing power throughout retirement, and it provides peace of mind. This structured approach provides confidence that your retirement savings will support you throughout your lifetime. By starting with a dynamic income plan, we break down a retirement into actionable steps where retirees can enjoy their money during the vibrant years while safeguarding their financial security for the quieter years ahead. So coming back to our example of John and Sally. So remember we said that they are 60 years old, and for the purpose of our example, we're going to use a life expectancy of 95. So that means we've got a plan to at least the age of 95. And if we look at the different phases, for their first 10 years or the go-go years, we're going to work with a combined monthly income of 70,000 Rand per month. And for the second 10 years or the slow-go years, we're going to work with a combined income of 60,000 Rand per month. And then the final phase or the no-go years, we're going to use a combined income of 45,000 Rand per month. Of course, this is the current monetary value or the current amounts, but these amounts are going to be adjusted for normal inflation and also be adjusted for medical and healthcare inflation. So it is super important to remember that when it comes to retirement planning, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Every person is unique with their own goals, aspirations, and fears. Fears like, what if the market crashes? What if you need long-term care? What if one spouse passes away before the other? These are critical questions to consider. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen in retirement planning is not considering the impact of one spouse predeceasing the other. This can lead to significant increases in taxes and a decrease in income, especially if you're relying on both spouses' combined income. We're going to explore these different scenarios to help you understand the complexities involved. Our goal is to get you thinking and connecting the dots. We've worked with thousands of families and retirees over the years, and while we can't cover every possible situation, we want to highlight the importance of making informed decisions. Remember, these decisions often have long-term consequences that might not be apparent for the next 5, 10, or 15 years. Our approach helps you secure your financial security throughout retirement, allowing you to enjoy the lifestyle you've worked hard for. Our main goal with this video is to get you thinking. So, coming back to our example of John and Sally, at our first meeting, what we do is we conduct a comprehensive financial needs analysis. This allows us to get a snapshot of your current financial position. So, if we look at our example, we can see that John and Sally have a combined the following. They've got a rental property that they rent out, that's worth about R1 million, and they've got a primary residence, which is a lifestyle asset that's valued about R5 million. So it's important to distinguish between lifestyle assets and investment assets, because at the end of the day, you're always going to need some place to live. Next, if we look on John's side, John earns a rental income of about 30,000 Rand per year from that rental property, because the rental property is in both of their names. And John has a company pension fund sitting at about 7 million Rand, a fixed deposit account at the bank of about R1 million, and a tax-free savings account of about 400,000 Rand. If we look at Sally's side, Sally also earns rental income, and she's got a retirement annuity of about 1.7 million Rand, a money market account of about 600,000 Rand, and a tax-free savings account of 300,000 Rand. So overall, they've got quite a good portfolio. It is, however, important to note that most of their money is in tax-advantaged retirement accounts. This means that they receive tax deductions for their contributions, but in retirement they will need to pay taxes on their withdrawals. We're now going to explore the 3-step retirement income planning process. These 3 steps are intertwined, but we are going to break them down into 3 distinctive steps to make it a bit easier to understand. The first step in our retirement plan is asset allocation. It's essential to ensure that your investment portfolio is aligned with your risk tolerance and retirement goals. Too much risk might cause you to withdraw from your investments during market downturns, jeopardizing your retirement plan. Your asset allocation will also have a massive impact on the returns that you earn throughout your retirement. At Family Wealth Custodians, we conduct a detailed risk tolerance questionnaire and financial capacity analysis. For the purpose of our example, we'll assume that John and Sally both are moderate investors. So the first question we get is, what does it mean to be a moderate investor? So a moderate investor is someone who seeks a balance between risk and reward in their investment portfolio. They're willing to accept some level of market volatility and risk of loss in order to achieve their growth. But they're also cautious and prioritize preserving their capital. Moderate investors typically aim for a mix of asset classes that balances growth potential with stability. So an example of what a portfolio of a moderate investor would look like is something like this, where you're sitting with equity exposure or growth assets of about 50%, fixed income or more conservative, about 30%, alternatives, which include stuff like gold at 5%, property exposure more or less at 5%, and then cash or cash alternatives sitting at about 10% of the portfolio. Of course, this is just an example, but it gives you a good idea that it gives us a mix between the ability to grow your portfolio, but also protecting you against downside. When looking at the portfolio of a moderate investor, it's also important to note and to remember that South Africa only forms a small part of the world economy. We're sitting at about less than 1% of global GDP. So it's important that you not only invest all your funds just in South Africa. So when we look at the portfolio of a moderate investor, such a portfolio might be positioned where you're sitting with about 60% in South African assets and 40% internationally. Of course, it's just a guideline, but I think the important thing here is to realize that you shouldn't invest all your assets just in South Africa. You can diversify risk, currency risk, political risk, just by investing a portion of your portfolio in international markets. So coming back to our example of John and Sally, if we take a snapshot of their combined asset allocation, I think it's clear that we can see that a big portion of their portfolio is invested in cash and fixed income. So what this means is that their portfolio is invested in more conservative assets, sitting about 75% conservative assets. The problem is, take consideration that they are moderate investors. A portfolio like this might mean that their growth in their portfolio can't keep up with inflation, and that might mean that they won't be able to meet their retirement goals. So it's important to note and to rebalance your portfolio in order to meet your long-term goals. So now, when we look at the geographic allocation of John and Sally, it's clear that we can see that the biggest portion of their portfolio is invested in South Africa, with only about 10% of their portfolio invested internationally. The thing here is that they're definitely overexposed to South Africa, considering that there's a lot of risks that are associated with the country. Political risk, economic risk, but it also means that they're very exposed to the volatility of the rand and they're not hedged against the currency. So I think looking at their portfolio, it's important to sort of find a balance between South African exposure and offshore exposure. At Family Wealth Custodians, we use trusted linked investment service providers, such as Allan Gray, 91, and a couple of others. These platforms enable us to use seamless management of local and offshore investments in one place. By combining cost-effective passive strategies with top-tier active managers, we create diversified goal-aligned portfolios in order to reach each client's unique asset allocation. These linked investment service providers offer greater transparency, flexibility, and lower fees compared with traditional insurance-based platforms, delivering simplicity and value for money. Once your risk profile is determined and your assets have been allocated, the next step is to develop a tax strategy to optimize your tax position in retirement. Effective tax planning is an ongoing process throughout retirement, and in South Africa, the tax implications of your retirement income can significantly impact your financial well-being. The first decision John and Sally would need to make is regarding the lump sum withdrawal from their respective retirement funds. In South Africa, when you retire from a pension fund, a preservation fund, a provident fund or provident preservation fund, or a retirement annuity, after attaining the age of 55, you're allowed to withdraw up to 1/3 of your funds as a lump sum withdrawal. This withdrawal is then taxed according to the retirement fund lump sum benefit tax table. So when we have a look at the retirement fund lump sum benefit tax table for the financial year ending 28 February 2025, it's important to note that the first 550,000 Rand that you withdraw as a lump sum from your retirement fund there's no tax payable. But then as you withdraw more, there's a progressive tax system where you're going to pay 18, 27, and 36%. So it's important to manage the amount you withdraw from your respective, as a lump sum from your respective retirement fund. So coming back to the example of John and Sally, should they decide to withdraw 1/3 as a lump sum from their retirement funds, then John, with a 7 million Rand in his company pension fund, could withdraw about 2.3 million Rand as a taxable lump sum. So the tax on that according to the retirement fund lump sum tax benefit table, equates to about 567,750 Rand. So that means after he's paid tax, of that 1/3 withdrawal, he will only have left about 1.765 million Rand. And if we move on to Sally, should she decide to withdraw the full 1/3 from her retirement annuity, which is sitting at about 1.7 million Rand, then she would have a taxable lump sum of about 566,000 Rand. The tax on that's going to be significantly lower because it's very much closer to the tax-free portion, but she's going to pay about 3,000 Rand in taxes. So if we move on and we look at their combined portfolio, or the combined tax they're going to pay, is the 567,750 Rand plus the 3,000 Rand, means that combined, should they decide to each withdraw the full 1/3, they're going to pay approximately 570,000 Rand in taxes. Where, should they decide to just withdraw the 550,000 Rand tax-free portion as a lump sum withdrawal, then there will be no tax on that withdrawal. So I think that's a very important decision to make. Do you really need to withdraw the full 1/3, or are you rather going to stick to the tax-free portion of the withdrawal? The next decision John and Sally would need to make is regarding converting their retirement portfolios to a life or living annuity. This is a critical decision that can have significant impact on their financial security and lifestyle in retirement. Let's explore what these annuities are, how they work, and which option might be the best for you. An annuity is a financial product that provides a steady income stream, typically for life. There are two main types of annuities: life or guaranteed annuities and living annuities. A life annuity provides you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life, regardless of how long you live. The insurance company assumes the investment risk and guarantees your income. The benefits of a life annuity is the fact that you have a guaranteed income for life. You don't have to take any investment risk, and there's a predictability from a financial planning point of view. The cons are less flexibility, no control of your investment, and potential for lower returns. The other big thing is that the first dying, the remaining spouse only gets about half of their income, and should that spouse then pass away, the kids get nothing. A living annuity offers more flexibility. You manage the investments and can choose the income level within certain limits. These limits are currently sitting between 2.5% and 7.5%. However, you bear the investment risk, and there's a possibility of outliving your savings if the portfolio performs poorly, or if your withdrawals are too high. The benefit of investing in a living annuity is the fact that you have flexibility and control, potential for higher returns, adjustable income, and you can bequeath your capital to your loved ones. The risks, or the negative side of a living annuity, is the fact that you have investment risk, potential to outlive your savings, and it requires active management. Choosing between a living and a life annuity is a significant decision that depends on your financial situation, risk tolerance, and retirement goals. For the purpose of our example, let's say John and Sally choose to convert their retirement savings to a living annuity. So if we look at John and Sally's position post-implementation, taking into consideration that they decided to only withdraw the tax-free portion of their lump sums, and they chose to transition into a living annuity. If we look at their portfolio now, we can clearly see that John now has a living annuity of about 6,450,000 Rand, and then he has a moderate investment portfolio of 1,550,000 Rand. So that 550,000 Rand that he took out of his pension fund as a lump sum withdrawal, he now invested as a discretionary investment. He still has his tax-free savings account, and if we look at Sally's position, she now has a living annuity of 1,150,000 Rand, and her money that was invested with the bank now sits in a moderate investment account with a value of about 1,150,000 Rand. So again, that 550,000 Rand tax-free portion she invested into a moderate portfolio, and she still has a tax-free savings account of about 300,000 Rand. One of the big mistakes I often see with retirees is that they withdraw their full monthly income from their living annuity. The reason I say this is because the monthly withdrawals from your living annuity is taxed as a regular income according to your personal income tax rates in the relevant year of assessment. So in our example, should John and Sally withdraw their full income need from their respective living annuities, then their tax situation would look as follows. So if we look at John and Sally's situation, so first of all, John and Sally require a pre-tax monthly income of 70,000 Rand. So if they withdraw proportionately from their respective living annuities, then, and we take all other taxable income into consideration, then John would withdraw about 684,000 Rand from his living annuity and a further 30,000 Rand from his rental income. That means he's going to pay approximately 177,000 Rand in taxes. If we look at Sally's situation, her income from a living annuity is considered about 96,000 Rand with 30,000 Rand rental income. That means her tax is going to sit at about 5,445 Rand. What's important is if we look at the combined tax position, they're going to pay about 183,000 Rand a year in taxes, in income taxes. This means that their combined after-tax income of the 70,000 Rand that they withdraw, they're going to only be able to use 54,721 Rand of that amount. Through proper financial planning, there is, however, a way how they can save taxes on their monthly income needs. That's by simply just withdrawing a portion of their income from their investment plan and tax-free savings accounts. Withdrawals from an investment plan may trigger capital gains tax if the investments are sold for more than their base cost. However, John and Sally each qualify for the capital gains annual exclusion, which currently stands at 40,000 Rands per year for the current tax year. Furthermore, for individuals, only 40% of your capital gain would be included as a taxable income. Thus, the maximum marginal tax rate is 18% for individuals. Dividends earned within their investment plans are also subject to the dividends withholding tax that currently stand at 20%. This amount is withheld by the entity paying the dividends. So for John, with his marginal tax rate sitting about 39%, there's a definite tax benefit earning dividend income. And if we look at something like interest income, the first 23,800 Rand that you earn if you're younger than the age of 65 is also tax-free. And once you reach the age of 65, then you can earn up to 34,500 Rand a year without paying any tax. When it comes to withdrawals from tax-free savings account, it's exactly what it says. It's completely tax-free, including all capital gains, dividends, interests, and any other form of income earned in a tax-free savings account, there's no tax. So now, by not withdrawing all their income from their living annuities, but rather withdrawing some of their income from their discretionary and tax-free investments, their tax position would drastically look different. So again, if we look at John and Sally's example, and they still need a monthly income of 70,000 Rand, the same as before, now if we take consideration that they both qualify for the annual interest exemption of 23,800 Rand, they both qualify for the capital gains exemption of 40,000 Rand per year, and John earns a tax-free or dividend income from his investment portfolio of 30,000 Rand, and they both have tax-free income that they're withdrawing from their tax-free savings account at a rate of about 6%. That means that John will earn 28,000 Rand tax-free and Sally earn 21,000 Rand tax-free. That means that in total, John has 111,800 Rand a year that he can earn without paying any tax if he structures the portfolio in the right way. And for Sally, it's about 84,800 Rand. This means that if they still need the same amount of income a month, they can reduce the amount they withdraw from their living annuity, and by doing that, they can pay more tax. So in our example, if John reduces his living annuity withdrawal to 602,000 Rand, and Sally reduces her withdrawal to 41,200 Rand, that means the total amount of tax they are going to pay combined drops to 136,416 Rand. This means they have an annual tax saving of approximately 46,931 Rand. So just by simple basic financial planning without doing too much to their portfolio, we were able to save them approximately 46,900 Rand a year in taxes. Now, this of course is just an example, but there's actually so much more that we can do in a portfolio if we do proper planning. Just by restructuring where they draw their income, how they draw their income, and when they draw their income could have a massive difference in their longevity and how long their funds would last. Income planning is about determining how much you can withdraw annually while maintaining your standard of living, keeping up with inflation, and covering your medical expenses later in life. As discussed earlier, we use the dynamic retirement income plan at Family Wealth, and as we already determined for John and Sally, they require the following income in retirement. So going back to John and Sally, like we said, for the first 10 years, the go-go years, they require 70,000 Rand per month. For the second period, they require 60,000 Rand per month, and for the final stage of their life, they're going to need about 45,000 Rand per month. It's crucial to remember that these amounts are adjusted for inflation, and we also take medical inflation into calculation when determining how much funds they're going to need. So if we look at the total amount that they have available in retirement and the income they need throughout the different phases of their retirement, then we find the following example or the following situation. So what we did in this whole calculation is we used 3 different growth rates, taking into consideration that they have to retire at the age of 60. So in our first example, we use a growth rate of 8%, a combined growth rate on their portfolio. So if they retire at age 60 and they earn a growth rate of approximately 8% on their portfolio with inflation as discussed earlier, then there's only about a 73% of their portfolio, only about 73% of their retirement is funded. If we look at a situation where they earn a return of about 9% on their portfolio, then they're 82% funded for their retirement. This means their funds would last until the early 80s. And then the final situation, if they return quite a high rate, a long-term return rate of 10% per year, then they're only still about 92% funded, which would take them a long way, deep into their 80s, early 90s, but there's still a risk that they will run out of capital at a later stage in life. So now, if we take the exact same assumptions that we used in our previous example, but the only thing that we change is that John and Sally are able to retire at age 65. For some reason, they're able just to extend their retirement of another 5 years. This has a dramatic effect on their overall financial position. So like we can see here, with a lowish growth rate of about 8%, that means that they are 92% funded at retirement. If they are able to attain a growth rate of 9% over the long term, which I think is reasonable, that means they are 106% funded in retirement. And if they are able to achieve a higher growth rate of about 10%, then they're 122% funded. So what this means in principle is that just by retiring a bit later and earning a reasonable rate of return, they would have more than enough funds to comfortably retire. Here's the big takeaway from this example. In these simulations, if they decide to retire at the age of 60, then they're delving into the capital early on. Especially if you consider that for the first couple of years, they're withdrawing about 840,000 Rand per year from their portfolio, which equates to a withdrawal rate of approximately 7%. And with inflation sitting at 5%, this means that their portfolio should deliver an annual return of more than 12% for them not to delve into their capital. This puts them at a significant risk, especially in the beginning years when their account balances are decreasing due to their higher spending. Furthermore, this exposes them to the sequence of return risk, which is the danger of taking income from your portfolio during market downturns. If you withdraw 6% and the market drops 14%, your portfolio loses 20%. For example, if you start with let's say 12 million Rand in your investments and the market drops, then you only have 8.6 million Rand left. To maintain the same income level for the next year, you would need to increase the percentage you withdraw. This risk means losing money in the first few years can drastically reduce your chances of a successful retirement. You can visit our YouTube channel for more information on the sequence of return risk and how to manage it effectively during your retirement years. In the real world, when we're sitting down with you for a review, let's say you retire at 60, we discuss your portfolio performance, the economic forecast, and your overall financial situation, including your actual spending. We track your progress over time, and you have a digital access to your plan. If your portfolio sees significant growth for, let's say, 30 to 40% in the first couple of years, this might mean that you are able to retire at age 62. But it's important that we constantly adjust your strategy as circumstances change. For instance, if you started with a more aggressive portfolio, we could decide to take some profits, reduce your equity exposure, and defer your annuity withdrawals for another year or two, which could potentially provide lifetime income and growth. Real-world retirement planning involves more than just numbers. It includes many variables and decisions. Recognizing these complexities and discussing them helps us make the best decisions as often as possible. Retirement planning, financial market, taxes, incomes are not always black and white. This is why we're working with someone who understands your unique circumstances and nuances could give you the best outcome. Next, let's explore a feature of retirement planning called What Keeps You Up at Night. Many clients fear seeing their portfolio values fluctuate widely in retirement. They prefer steady, predictable income streams from multiple sources. The things that keep you up at night includes things like market crashes, taxes increasing, the effect of inflation on your portfolio, long-term care for a loved one, and political instability. It's so important to take all of these circumstances and changing environments into calculation. Everything we discuss and analyze with clients is just a snapshot in time. Each year, circumstances change, portfolio values fluctuate, spending patterns vary, and personal goals evolve. Staying connected and regularly updating the retirement plan is essential. Retirement planning is not a one-time task, but an ongoing process that requires regular adjustment. In conclusion, retiring in South Africa with 12 million rand requires careful planning and ongoing management. By understanding how decisions today impact your future, you can achieve financial security and peace of mind in retirement. If you have any questions or need further assistance, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help you navigate your retirement journey. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights and videos on financial planning and retirement planning.